The afternoon light filtered through the tall windows of the music store, casting golden streaks across rows of polished instruments. Dust particles danced lazily in the warm beams, creating an almost magical atmosphere in the quiet space. The air held the familiar scent of wood polish and aged leather from the piano benches. Marcus adjusted his tool belt and wiped his hands on a clean cloth. His weathered fingers, calloused from years of careful work, moved with practiced precision as he examined the intricate mechanics of the grand piano before him. The instrument was a masterpiece, a 1920s Steinway with ebony and ivory keys that gleamed like jewels in the afternoon sun. Behind him, his 8-year-old daughter Emma sat cross-legged on the floor, her blonde hair catching the light as she quietly worked on her homework. Her presence brought him comfort during these long repair sessions. Since her mother had passed 3 years ago, Emma had become his constant companion, following him to piano repair jobs across the city. "Daddy, is this one special?" Emma asked, looking up from her math worksheets with curious blue eyes. Marcus smiled, his expression softening as it always did when she spoke. "Very special, sweetheart. This piano is over 100 years old. Someone's great-grandmother probably played lullabies on these very keys." The sound of sharp heels clicking against the hardwood floor interrupted their peaceful moment. Victoria Sterling swept into the room like a summer storm, all confidence and perfectly styled blonde hair. Her navy business suit was immaculate, and diamonds sparkled at her throat and wrists. Everything about her screamed wealth and power. She surveyed the scene with calculating green eyes, taking in Marcus's work clothes and his daughter's simple dress. Her gaze lingered on the tools scattered around the piano, and her perfectly painted lips curved into what might have been a smile, though it never reached her eyes. "You must be the piano technician," Victoria said, her voice carrying the crisp authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "I'm Victoria Sterling. This is my piano." Marcus straightened, instinctively moving slightly closer to Emma. "Yes, ma'am. Marcus Thompson. Your piano had some issues with the action mechanism, but I've got it working beautifully now." Victoria walked around the instrument slowly, running her manicured fingers along its polished surface. "My grandmother left this to me," she said, though her tone suggested little emotional attachment. "I suppose it's worth maintaining, even if I never play it myself." She paused at the bench, her eyes fixing on Marcus with an expression that made him uncomfortable. There was something predatory in her gaze, something that reminded him of a cat toying with a mouse. "Tell me, Mr. Thompson," Victoria continued, settling gracefully onto the piano bench, "do you actually play piano, or do you just fix them?" "I play a little," Marcus admitted quietly. It was more than a little. He had studied piano performance in college, before life led him down a different path, but he had learned long ago that admitting too much skill often led to uncomfortable situations with wealthy clients. Victoria's smile widened, and she reached into her purse, pulling out a thick roll of $100 bills. Marcus's eyes widened slightly despite himself. There had to be several $1,000s in her hand. "Here's what I propose," she said, her voice taking on a playful but mocking tone. "Play Chopin on my grandmother's heirloom piano. Something difficult. Let's say the Ballade No. 1 in G minor. If you can actually play it properly, every penny of this money is yours." She placed the cash on top of the piano with a theatrical flourish, the bills catching the golden afternoon light. "But when you fail, and we both know you will, you'll finish your work here and leave quietly. No charging me extra fees. No pretending you're something you're not." Emma looked up from her homework, sensing the tension in the room. Her young face showed confusion at the adult dynamics playing out before her. Marcus felt his jaw tighten, recognizing the cruel game Victoria was playing. She saw him as just another working-class man she could humiliate for her amusement. The Ballade No. 1 was indeed difficult, a piece that demanded not just technical skill, but deep emotional understanding. It was also, by cruel coincidence, the piece his late wife, Sarah, had loved most. The piece he had played for her the night he proposed. The piece he hadn't touched since her funeral. "I appreciate the offer, Mrs. Sterling," Marcus said carefully, "but I'm here to work on your piano, not to entertain you." Victoria's laugh was sharp and cold. "Oh, come now. Surely you're not afraid of a simple piano piece? Or perhaps you realize you're out of your league." Emma stood up, her small hand finding her father's calloused one. She didn't fully understand what was happening, but she could feel her father's discomfort. Marcus squeezed her hand gently, drawing strength from her presence. Something shifted in Marcus's expression. Perhaps it was the dismissive way Victoria had spoken, or perhaps it was the memory of Sarah's voice, encouraging him never to hide his gifts. He looked down at Emma, who gave him a small, encouraging nod. "All right," Marcus said quietly, his voice steady despite the emotion building in his chest. "I'll play." Victoria settled back with obvious satisfaction, clearly anticipating his failure. She crossed her legs elegantly and folded her hands in her lap, the very picture of someone about to enjoy a private show. Marcus approached the piano bench slowly. His hands trembled slightly as he lifted the key cover and adjusted the bench height. The familiar weight of the keys beneath his fingers brought back a flood of memories. Late nights studying at conservatory, Sarah listening from the doorway, Emma as a toddler clapping along to simple melodies. He placed his fingers on the keys and closed his eyes for a moment, letting the memory of the music flow through him. Then, with a deep breath, he began. The opening notes of Chopin's Ballade No. 1 filled the room like liquid gold. The melody was haunting and beautiful, each note perfectly placed and weighted with emotion. Marcus's fingers moved across the keys with surprising grace, his rough hands producing sounds of ethereal beauty. Victoria's smug expression began to falter as the music continued. This wasn't the fumbling attempt she had expected. This was artistry. The technical passages flowed seamlessly, but more than that, the music carried genuine feeling. Each phrase told a story of love, loss, and hope. Emma moved closer to the piano, her eyes wide with wonder. She had heard her father play before, but never like this. Never with such raw emotion pouring from every note. Tears began to form in her young eyes as she recognized something profound in the music. It was her father saying goodbye to her mother through Chopin's immortal melody. As Marcus reached the piece's dramatic climax, his hands flew across the keys with passion and precision. The music soared through the room, transforming the simple piano showroom into a concert hall. Every technical demand of the piece was met with seeming effortlessness, but the real magic was in the emotional depth he brought to every phrase. Victoria sat in stunned silence, her composure completely shattered. This was not the outcome she had anticipated. The working man in coveralls had just delivered a performance that would have been at home in Carnegie Hall. When the final haunting notes faded into silence, Marcus sat quietly at the bench for a moment, his hands still resting on the keys. The room felt different somehow, as if the music had changed something fundamental about the space. Emma was the first to break the silence, running to her father and wrapping her small arms around his shoulders. "Daddy, that was beautiful," she whispered, and he could hear the tears in her voice. Victoria rose slowly from her chair, her face flushed with embarrassment and something that might have been shame. She walked to the piano and picked up the roll of money with trembling hands, then placed it gently on the music stand. She began, then stopped, seemingly at a loss for words. For the first time since entering the room, Her armor of superiority had cracked, revealing something more human